Welcome to the Deep Dive. For, gosh, over 2 decades now, actually more than 25 years since it came out in 1994, there's this one film that's just consistently held the top spot on IMDb's top 250 films list. We're talking about The Shawshank Redemption. Just think about that. It stayed #1, voted by regular people, ahead of giants like The Godfather, even The Dark Knight. Pretty remarkable, right?
It really is. And the story behind the film is almost as fascinating because, this movie that everyone seems to love now, it wasn't exactly a hit when it first landed.
No, man, look.
It barely made back about, $16 million of its $25 million budget in the U.S. initially.
Wow.
Yeah, the director, Frank Darabont, he even said it really struggled to find an audience at first.
It's kind of unbelievable, isn't it? A film we now see as this absolute classic had such a shaky start. So, for anyone who may be less familiar, the story centers on Andy Dufresne. He's this successful banker in 1947, and he gets wrongly convicted for murdering his wife and her lover. Since Maine, where it's set, doesn't have the death penalty, he gets 2 life sentences back-to-back in Shawshank Penitentiary.
A pretty bleak place.
Oh, yeah. And the film covers, 2 decades of his life inside. It really focuses on his experiences, his incredible friendship with another inmate, Red, played by Morgan Freeman, and ultimately, how he manages to triumph despite everything.
So I guess the big question we're digging into today is how? How did this film go from, sort of stumbling out of the gate to becoming so deeply loved that it just stays at #1 on IMDb? What's the secret sauce there? What makes it connect so profoundly?
Okay, yeah, let's try and unpack that. I mean, the most obvious starting point has to be just the sheer quality of the movie itself, right?
Definitely.
It's just, almost everyone agrees it's incredibly well made. The performances, Tim Robbins as Andy, Morgan Freeman as Red people, talk about them as some of the best, ever.
Absolutely iconic.
And the supporting cast, too. They create this whole believable world inside Shawshank. And visually, Darabont's direction, Roger Deakins' cinematography, it just looks fantastic.
Yeah, it pulls you right in. It feels real. And it's driven by the characters, That dynamic just works.
It does.
And I think building on that quality aspect, it's what the film talks about. It goes beyond just being, a prison movie. It hits on these really universal human things, justice, or the lack of it, hope, friendship, just basic humanity in awful circumstances. These themes, they just resonate with almost everyone, regardless of age or background, maybe more so than some other films often called the greatest.
That's a good point. Some of those, gangster films or maybe older black and white classics, they might have a more specific appeal.
Exactly. Or maybe really complex narratives. Shawshank feels very accessible thematically.
And maybe part of that accessibility as well, there's this idea that it's kind of inoffensive in a way. Not that it pulls punches, but that most people like it or even love it, and very few people seem to hate it.
That's true.
So you don't get those really polarized scores that might pull down the average for other films. It gets consistently high ratings from a broad base.
Right, and maybe why it has that broad appeal comes down to the themes being so timeless.
Yeah.
Think about it. Some films feel very tied to their time period. Like the setting, the effects might look dated now, but hope, friendship, perseverance, those things don't really age. They're always relevant.
It makes a lot of sense. Now, what about some of the, let's say, less artistic theories about why it dominates IMDb?
Yeah. There are a few interesting ones floating around.
Like the rivalry theory?
Exactly. The idea that maybe fans of, say, The Godfather and The Dark Knight are kind of locked in their own battle for the top spot. And maybe they spend energy downvoting each other, which, inadvertently helps Shawshank stay on top because it's slightly outside that direct fight.
Interesting. Like it benefits from the crossfire.
Sort of, yeah. And then there's the snowball effect, or maybe call it positive bias.
How does that work?
Well, because it's been #1 for so long, maybe new viewers go into it already thinking, okay, this is supposed to be the best movie ever.
Right, the expectation is set.
And that expectation might color how they see it, how they rate it. It kind of perpetuates itself.
And I read something interesting, too, about cable TV. Apparently, Shawshank got played a lot on channels like TNT back in the day.
Right. It was constantly on.
Right. So a whole generation of people who are probably active IMDb users now grew up seeing it repeatedly. That familiarity could definitely build appreciation.
For sure. Early exposure, nostalgia, that stuff is powerful.
Yeah.
And we can't forget the ending.
Oh, definitely not.
That ending delivers such a punch of, well, hope and satisfaction, leaves you feeling good, and that positive feeling really sticks, probably influences those ratings quite a bit.
Absolutely. That resolution is just...
Ah,
all right. Okay, let's maybe walk through the story a bit more to see how these themes actually unfold.
good idea.
So, Andy Dufresne arrives at Shawshank. He's this quiet, reserved banker type. Seems totally out of place.
Mm-hmm. Red, Morgan Freeman's character, who's kind of the prison facilitator, the guy who can get things.
The go-to guy.
Yeah. He even bets with the other inmates that Andy will be one of the first new guys to just break down completely.
Right. But Andy shows this quiet strength almost immediately.
Yeah.
He asks Red for that little rock hammer.
Ostensibly for his rock carving hobby, yeah.
And then later, the Rita Hayworth poster, Red's initial thought is, escape tools. Right?
Which is understandable in that environment. But then we see Andy use his old skills in a different way. That scene on the roof.
Oh, yeah. The roof tarring scene. Great scene.
Andy overhears Captain Hadley, one of the guards, complaining about inheritance tax.
And Andy, the former banker, just steps up, offers to help him shelter the money legally.
And what does he ask for in return?
Just beers. Beers for all the guys working on the roof with him.
It's such a key moment. A little bit of defiance, a moment of shared humanity. It earns him respect, and it shows he knows how to work the system, even inside prison.
And that reputation leads to him working in the prison library, initially helping out Brooks Hatlin, the old librarian.
But Warden Norton, the guy in charge, he quickly sees how Andy's financial brains could be useful for less than honest reasons.
Yeah, for the warden's own corrupt schemes.
Yeah.
But Andy doesn't just become the warden's accountant. He dedicates himself to the library itself.
He really does. He starts writing letters, so many letters.
Week after week, year after year, to the state legislature asking for funds.
And eventually, incredibly, it works. He gets money, books, materials. He builds up the best prison library in the state, even names it after Brooks.
And then there's that amazing, defiant moment where he locks himself in the office and plays Mozart over the prison PA system.
Oh, goosebumps. Just
Yeah.
that brief moment of beauty, of freedom, echoing through the prison yard.
Of course, it lands him in solitary confinement.
Naturally. But it shows his spirit isn't broken. He's holding on to something inside, which is such a stark contrast to what happens with Brooks.
Oh, Brooks' story is just heartbreaking.
Isn't it? After 50 years inside, he gets paroled. But the world outside, it's too much. He can't cope.
He's institutionalized. That line, get busy living or get busy dying, it takes on a different meaning for him.
Exactly. Freedom, for him, becomes terrifying. And his suicide. Carving Brooks was here. It's devastating. It really drives home how prison changes people and what freedom even means.
Yeah, it really makes you think. Meanwhile, Andy's using the library he built to help other inmates too, right?
Oh,
Getting them their high school diplomas.
Mm-hmm. He's creating this little pocket of opportunity and hope. But there's still the dark side. The warden forces him to launder all that dirty money.
Right, under the fake identity, Randall Stevens.
The irony is just thick, isn't it? The innocent man forced to become a crook inside prison walls.
Then years pass, and this young inmate, Tommy Williams, shows up.
And Tommy holds the key, unknowingly. He tells the story about a former cellmate who actually confessed to the murders Andy was convicted of.
It's the proof Andy needs. But when he takes it to Warden Norton,
Norton panics. If Andy gets out, his whole corrupt operation gets exposed.
so he refuses to help. And worse.
He has Tommy killed. Sets it up to look like an escape attempt. Just utterly ruthless.
And then he threatens Andy directly. Keep quiet, keep doing the books, or the library goes, and life gets much, much worse, throws him back in solitary again.
A long stretch this time. 2 months.
And when Andy gets out, he seems changed, maybe? He starts talking to Red about Zihuatanejo, this place in Mexico.
A warm place with no memory.
Yeah. And he gives Red these really specific instructions about finding something near an oak tree in a field in Buxton, Maine, if Red ever gets out.
Which, understandably, makes Red worry. He thinks Andy might be suicidal, especially when he finds out Andy got hold of a length of rope.
Everyone's bracing for the worst. But the next morning,
Roll call. Andy's cell.
empty. The warden is furious, throws a rock at the poster on the wall. Rita Hayworth first, then Marilyn Monroe, finally Raquel Welch over the years.
And the rock goes through it, revealing the tunnel.
The tunnel Andy spent nearly 20 years digging with that tiny rock hammer.
Incredible patience. Incredible determination.
He crawls through that, then through a sewage pipe. Emerges into the rain, into freedom.
But he didn't just escape.
No way. He took the warden's suit, his shoes, and crucially, the ledger detailing all the money laundering,
Posing as Randall Stevens, he goes bank to bank, withdraws all the laundered cash,
and then mails the ledger and the evidence to the newspaper. Exposes everything.
which leads to Hadley's arrest and Warden Norton. Well, he takes his own way out before they can take him.
A fitting end for him. But the story doesn't stop there.
No, because years later, Red finally gets paroled.
And just like Brooks, he finds the outside world incredibly difficult. He's bagging groceries, feeling lost.
That fear of freedom again. But he remembers his promise to Anri.
He finds that field, that oak tree in Buxton, finds the box Andy left.
With money and a letter inviting him to Zihuatanejo.
So Red makes that choice. He violates his parole. Get busy living.
Or get busy dying. He chooses living, heads down to Mexico.
And that final scene on the beach, that reunion, just perfect.
It really is so much emotion, so much hope packed into that moment.
And that feeling, that hope, the perseverance, the deep friendship, that idea you can find freedom inside yourself even when you're physically trapped.
Yeah.
That's really why the film hits so hard, I think.
Absolutely. Those themes connect universally. Even if your life looks nothing like Andy's or Red's, you understand that struggle, that desire for something better.
And the film does such a good job showing that freedom isn't just about being outside walls. Andy finds a way to live, truly live, inside Shawshank through his purpose, his relationships.
While poor Brooks finds only terror and physical freedom, it's a powerful contrast about inner life versus outer circumstance.
And Andy's presence, his actions, they don't just save him. They kind of ripple outwards, offering hope, even a kind of redemption to others in the prison.
Yeah, he lifts the whole place up in a way. It's no wonder the Library of Congress recognized it, added it to the National Film Registry back in 2015. They saw its cultural and artistic importance.
That definitely deserves.
And it's fascinating to remember its path. Ignored at first, then becoming the most rented video of 1995, purely through people telling each other, you have to see this movie.
That word of mouth power is incredible.
It really is.
So, look, if you listening right now have somehow managed to not see The Shawshank Redemption yet.
Which seems almost impossible at this point.
Right. Or maybe it's just been a really long time. We seriously encourage you to watch it or maybe rewatch it. It's just so much more than a prison film. It really is about the human spirit, about resilience, about why hope matters. And maybe that's the core reason it still holds that #1 spot on IMDb after all these years. It just speaks to something fundamental in us.
It does. And maybe, as you think about the film, after listening to our chat, here's something to consider. Shawshank explores hope and freedom in extreme circumstances, right? So what does personal freedom really mean to you in your own life? What's the inner life, the inner strength that you draw on to deal with your own challenges? Something to maybe ponder.